This is different from the usual kind of video you'd expect to see from me, and it's different from the usual kind of video I'd make, but here we go. If I've managed to time this right, then today I am turning 22, and at this point in time I'm most likely spending it offline with family, but I wanted to make this video in advance, so everything you're hearing right now has been pre-recorded. I don't know how many times I've tried to record this audio that you're hearing. In fact, yesterday I spent 6 hours over and over again trying to record this audio, but I kept stopping, thinking that this could be changed, that could be changed, and before I knew it, 6 hours was over. So I scrapped all of it. It's a new day, I just woke up, and I don't know, I have a feeling that this might be the one that makes it in the final video, but we'll see. I have a script in front of me of what to say, not word for word, but just bullet points of topics so I don't go off track too much. And yesterday, every time I stopped recording the audio, I went back to the script and kept adding new things to the script. So as a result, I'm currently sat in front of a pretty big script right now, but I'll try my best to say what I want to say. Leading up to this day, there have been people, both online and offline, that have asked me what I would want for my birthday. You know, as you would ask someone when it's approaching. And when I was younger, each year I always had a answer for that question, you know, whether it would be a certain game that I wanted, a certain console, piece of technology, whatever it was. But for the past couple of years, every time I'm asked that question each year, I always kind of brush it off. But I sat there last night, or 2 nights ago actually, because yesterday I was trying to record this. I sat there 2 nights ago, and I think I sort of realized that it wasn't just me brushing it off every time I'm asked the question. It was me realizing that I don't know what I want for my birthday. So I decided to sit there and think for a while as to what I would actually want. And I decided not to limit myself to just materialistic gifts. If I could have anything, what would it be? And after thinking for a while, I realized that one of my favorite things to do is to have a conversation with someone. And I don't mean the conversation you have with someone when you run into them on the street and it only lasts for like 5 minutes. I mean the conversation that happens once in a while where you're with someone, it's usually one-to-one. You're both somewhere scenic, wherever that may be for you, and you're sharing past memories, you're sharing future aspirations, you're talking for what feels like hours on end, and you're just vibing. Now, to those of you watching this video, if I was to have that one-to-one conversation with each and every one of you, it would take a very long time, because all of you are from all sorts of different places around the world. And I always like to watch these kinds of videos on YouTube where it's just somebody talking in front of a camera, you know, no editing, no fancy concept to the video, it's just the person speaking their mind out to the camera. I don't think I've ever mentioned this before, but I actually make video diaries. Whenever I feel like I have something to say, or I'm just feeling like a certain type of way, I'll pull out my phone camera and I'll just hit the record button and I'll just speak my mind out. Sometimes it lasts for like 2 minutes, sometimes it lasts for over an hour, but I record these video diaries and nobody ever sees them. I record them and then I watch them back, whether it be days later, weeks later, months later, and hopefully soon years later. And every time I watch these video diaries back, it always feels like I'm having that one-to-one conversation with my past self. So this video is going to try and simulate that with all of you. You're going to have to help me a little bit with your imagination, but I'll explain why. Now let me ask you one question. If you were to have a goal that defines a future success, let's say, what would that goal be for you? And I know that question might not make the most sense, but maybe you might be able to answer that question, maybe you won't be able to answer that question. But for me, the answer to that is owning an apartment in the city with a nice view. I don't know if it's because I was born and raised in a city or what, but I think the best way to explain off the top of my head is that being in a city just feels comforting, it's just comforting to know that there's other people there doing their own thing instead of being in the middle of nowhere or being somewhere where there's not too many people. So yeah, one of my end-term goals would be to have an apartment in the city with a nice view. And so if you were to go inside my mind, what you're seeing right now on the screen is probably what you'd see. This scene, this music, these sounds, these would be my ideal perfect conditions for that one-to-one conversation with someone. And so I ask whoever you are watching this right now that no matter what you might be going through, whether it's work, school, family issues, maybe it's a mix of the three, maybe it's something entirely different, I ask that for the remainder of this video you try your best to forget about it and just help me with your imagination, because me and you, we're going to have that one-to-one conversation right now. Now, the premise of turning 22, to me, I still think 22 is a very young age, but I think it's in that stage of life where it's pretty scary because you're transitioning, well, you're nearing the end of that transition from, being a kid to being an adult. And I will say that these past couple of years have definitely brought a different kind of stress on me compared to the other years. Before you guys ask me if I'm okay, I'm fine. Most of my problems, they're in the past, they were short term, they're dealt with. I'm fine, there's nothing wrong. But alongside all these various stresses that I've faced throughout these past couple of years, I've also been met with some of the greatest moments of my life. And one of the moments that I love to think about time and time again is this one story that takes place in July of 2024. And before I actually explain the story, I think you guys might need a bit of context beforehand. So I had to move out for a year from August of 2023 to August of 2024. I had to move out to a different city that was a bit far away from where I live for school related reasons. And up until this point in my life, I'd never moved out. And although part of me was excited thinking I'll be fine, a big part of me was extremely scared because I'm someone who gets homesick really easily. So I moved out and the first couple of months were difficult. It hit me hard, let's just say. The homesickness hit me hard. But as the year progressed, I went from being homesick every single day to eventually enjoying my time there a lot. And funnily enough, as it was nearing August 2024, the time where I'd have to move back home, I didn't want to move back. I had come to really enjoy living alone and I was genuinely going to miss it. And so at the beginning of that year, I remember, I think it was the second day that I'd moved in. The first day was a complete disaster, but that's a story for another day. The second day, the Wi-Fi for the place that I was staying at was down. The entertainment that I brought along with me, which I remember was, I think it was Spider-Man and GTA for the PlayStation. I'd already played those games so much because I was trying to distract myself from the homesickness that I was sick of those two games. So I realistically had nothing to do, but there was one thing. It was extremely sunny that day. The weather was perfect on that day. And I don't usually go outside for no reason, but that day, I don't know whether it was a gut feeling or what, but I decided to just go on a walk, especially since I was in a new place. I wanted to explore the city. So I went on a walk and I discovered this place on my walk. Now, because of privacy, I can't exactly explain what this place was because then it can be easily found, but I found this place and this place definitely, I don't know, it changed something inside of me. I sat down on a bench, sat there and thought for a while, and suddenly, all of a sudden, I didn't feel as homesick anymore. It's a weird feeling, and I'm not really the best at explaining it, but it was just, the place comforted me. I think that's the best way I can describe it. It comforted me, that place. And so the year progressed, and as it neared towards the end of the year when I'd have to move back, I remember thinking to myself, I wish there would be a day where it would be sunny again, so I can go visit that place one more time before I leave. Because apart from that day near the start of the year when I first went there, I never went back to that place. So I wanted one more time just to go there. And exactly 1 week before I had to move out, exactly 7 days before, it was another very sunny day. The exact same weather as the first day when I went there. So I took this as a sign and I went back to that place. I found the same bench that I sat on a year prior, and I sat down there and I thought to myself. I started reminiscing, as I like to do. Up until that point in my life, I always had a sort of concrete vision with concrete steps as to what I wanted to do, what I wanted to become. But the events that transpired, or the events that I don't know, but whatever the saying is, the events that happened during that year flipped everything on its head. So I was a little lost. I sat down on this bench, started reminiscing, and I asked myself, John, what do you want to achieve in this life? What do you want to do in this life? And I know that's a pretty big question, but I like to think these things sometimes. I like to ask myself these questions from time to time. So I asked myself that question, and after a while, I managed to come up with an answer to that question. 3 things that I wanted to do. Now, the other 2 are kind of irrelevant. But the third ambition that I had was to try and take this streaming thing semi-seriously. And I say semi-seriously because I always knew that whether it be school or work, I'd always have something that would take priority, because school, work, that's obviously the more stable choice than trying to be a streamer. So I know those would always be taking the priority. But I wanted to try and do this streaming thing as a hobby on the side, because before that first ever stream I did in March, I was terrified of what people would think if I was to start streaming. But that stream proved me wrong. So I thought to myself, surely there's more people out there like the ones from that stream in March. And so I made up my mind to try and take this streaming thing semi-seriously, and I think almost a year later, here we are now. I know I'm not the biggest streamer, but the community that I've managed to build in this short time, I have no words. I genuinely think that I am the luckiest streamer out there. And yes, I do mean the luckiest. I don't know what I did to deserve this community. I don't know what I did to find this community, but I'm very grateful. Very, very grateful. So I like to think about that moment sometimes. The moment that started it all, if you may. That was the moment where Mr. John KW was truly born, if you'd like to see it that way. I don't know what the future exactly holds, but for as long as I'm able to keep streaming, keep making videos, I'll keep doing that. Because the priority always has, and hopefully always will be, to entertain you guys, to make you smile, to cheer you up on a bad day, and to spread love as well. But anyways, the future, that's for future me to worry about. There's no point in stressing about the future, because it's not something we can change directly. So let's talk about something else. I want to tell you guys about my favorite birthday. Now, because this is being pre-recorded, I don't know how my 22nd birthday is going to go. It could be my favorite one, who knows? But as of right now, my favorite one has to be my 18th birthday. Let me tell you guys a story. Now, this story takes place in 2021, and at the time I was doing A-levels. I, as you guys know, like to play games, and I had a PS4 at the time, but because of A-levels, I had to put the PlayStation away for a year to focus on studies. So I had been itching to play a game for a whole year. I don't know how I managed to last a year without caving into temptation, but I was fiending to play a game. And it's funny because as soon as I put away the PlayStation, I remember, I think a couple of weeks later, Genshin Impact released for PlayStation. And before you guys go in the comments and start hating on Genshin Impact, listen, you can think what you want to think of the game, but for me, back then, Genshin Impact was a banger of a game. And so I had to wait for a whole year seeing all of this Genshin Impact content, knowing that it's a free game, but I couldn't get my hands on it. And so 2021 summer finally comes by, and my birthday is very conveniently placed in mid-May, which is around exam season. I remember the final exam that I had was on May the 14th, so it was a Friday. That day, again, story for another day, but that day, one of the best days of my life. I came home. That whole weekend felt like my birthday. It felt like it was extended by an extra 2 days. I came home that Friday after school, immediately set up the PlayStation, and I don't remember how many hours I was playing for, but the whole summer felt like it was my birthday. I think that's the best way I can summarize the story instead of talking about it for hours, because if I was to include every single little detail, this video would easily be over 3 hours long. So yeah, the entire summer felt like my birthday in the best way possible. Now, to you watching, I don't know what your favorite birthday is. You might have one, you might not have one. If not a favorite birthday, then hopefully a favorite moment in your life. And again, you might have one, you might not have one, but regardless of whether you do or not, I think we should be grateful that, you know, we're both breathing, we're both living, we're both here being able to vibe with each other, you know. Again, I know this is kind of going off topic, but I think it's good to be grateful, regardless of what we're going through. Now I see, I've been recording for a while, and I'm nearing the end of my script. This is the first time I've ever tried to do anything like this. It's a very weird experience, to say the least. Not in a bad way, but very different. I've spoken like this in front of a mic or a camera before, but not with the intention of anybody else other than myself ever seeing it, so I don't know. Maybe you guys will enjoy this kind of content, maybe you won't. But I guess regardless, I think I'm making this video most for myself, so I can have a conversation with my past self when I was turning 22. If you watched until now, then thank you. You've managed to give me the best birthday gift I ever could have wished for. And who knows? If I decide to keep this up in the future, if I decide to do one of these every year, then maybe in the future will be an actual view instead of staring at a looping video like this. Who knows? But I guess we'll see. I'll see you guys in the next video.